Greetings everyone, Jonathan Bailey here from Plagiarism Today, URL below, and today I am making good on my promise to talk about YouTube, the DMCA, and Content ID, and why things on YouTube seem to be so messed up sometimes when it comes to these issues. Now, to kind of recap, the DMCA, Digital Millennium Copyright Act, is a law that was passed in 1998 and had many different elements, but the element we're talking about today is what's known as the notice and takedown system. This system requires hosts, like YouTube, to remove infringing material expeditiously when it is notified of said infringement in a properly formatted notice. Now, people think that this is unfair or blah, 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 but the thing is, and something you got to remember as we get into this is the law that allows YouTube to exist in many ways. Think about the Viacom v. YouTube case. Imagine like a bizarro world where that was an easy win for Viacom. Viacom just crushed Google and YouTube, and they had to pay the $1 billion. Basically, without the DMCA, which protects hosts and limits their liability in when copyright infringement is conducted by its users, at least, without that law, YouTube could not exist. In fact, most of the services and sites you enjoy today could not exist. So, take it the good with the bad on this one. But anyways, so YouTube, like most hosts, receive a lot of DMCAs. They receive a good amount of them. In fact, YouTube, I would say, probably receives more than most, or like way more than most. But the point to it all is that most of the takedowns that take place on YouTube are not actually DMCA notices. What? You say, I know. It's a surprise. You see, YouTube uses something called Content ID. And the idea behind Content ID is fairly simple. Rather than having to wait for copyright holders to file the takedown notices, they simply take every video that you upload, process it, run it through all their little gizmos on the back end, and basically create a fingerprint of it. And that fingerprint is matched against the content that other providers have uploaded, and that includes movie studios, TV networks, even video game makers are providing content these days. And so it's matched, and if there are matched, they remove the video, disable the audio, or take out the infringing content before there's ever a notice filed. In fact, this is usually done, sometimes it's done before the video is successfully uploaded, other times it's done shortly after. But bottom line is, it's done before a DMCA notice is ever sent to YouTube. Now, the law does not require YouTube to do this. YouTube does it on its own volition. And then you'd ask yourself, well, why is YouTube voluntarily removing content from its site, especially when a lot of these matches are mistakes and they're problematic? Well, there's three reasons that YouTube does this. The first reason is good old-fashioned money. YouTube, prior to implementing this system, was receiving a tidal wave of DMCA notices, and those DMCA notices require time, energy, resources, personnel to process and take down the content. And then it required resources to interact with the users, and basically it was a mess. So the idea was use Content ID, automate a large portion of the process, and boom! You save a lot of time, money, and resources. And long story short, that's exactly one of the reasons why YouTube did it. The second reason is YouTube has been actively pursuing this thing called a business model. And it's very difficult to do that because advertising is great, it's important, it's useful, but they also want to get into the content selling side, the side where, you know, you're actually doing things like offering content for rent or partnering with iTunes and Amazon MP3 to help people sell content. And you can't do that without this system. A, because how do you identify what content you're trying to market? It'd be kind of weird if you pull up a Justin Bieber video and they're marketing it as being an Alice Cooper. So you kind of need to be able to know what content's uploaded, and you need this type of technology to make that happen. But also, the content providers, to sign those deals with YouTube that make such sales possible, they were oftentimes demanding that YouTube use a Content ID system or something similar to help battle against what they saw as a wave of infringing videos. So YouTube signed the deals, and there you go, you got Content ID. But then there's the third reason, which is tricky, and it's why YouTube doesn't just simply go, well, you know, we're a big company now, we can afford to handle all your DMCA takedown notices. The third reason is Content ID is going to be a reality whether YouTube implements it or not. All the big content providers, whether they're, like I said, movie studios, TV networks, etc., have access to technology that's pretty much identical to what Content ID does. And guess what? They are constantly running it over YouTube. And before Content ID, they were using it to shoot out thousands and thousands of notices, largely automated, to YouTube that they had to take down. So YouTube just simply internalized the process that was being externalized and then brought in with DMCA notices. And frankly, if YouTube did away with Content ID tomorrow, you wouldn't see much of a change in effect, other than instead of saying this was blocked because it matched content from blah blah blah, you would be seeing it's blocked because of a DMCA notice from blah blah blah. And while that would give the users additional protections, the end result probably wouldn't be that great, because the way the law was written doesn't provide much recourse for you if a DMCA notice is sent truly and completely falsely, unless they do it with malice and knowing that it's a false DMCA notice. Negligence doesn't really give them the right. Yes, you can file a counter notice. Yes, you can get it restored, but theoretically, you can do that with Content ID too, and that leads to the two big problems with the Content ID. There's two. The first is obviously the mistakes. Content ID does screw up a fair amount. I've got a very good filmmaker friend of mine who uploaded a wonderful vlog about Hurricane Isaac. It was hitting, and he used a public domain song that was in an open license performance. It was touching and beautiful, and YouTube blocked the video because they said the song was copyrighted. Even though the song, I think, was composed in like the 1880s or something, and like I said, the actual version sung was an open license. One was Creative Commons licensed. So there was no reason to take down the video based upon that song. But it was a mistake, and what probably happened, and what I suspect happened, is what happens with a lot of these takedown notices, and that is sourcing error. This also happened with the Curiosity rover. It also happened with other incidents. But basically what happens is those people, the companies out there that are providing the content that YouTube matches against, don't take the time to remove everything that they themselves license from somewhere else. So if that song that my friend used was used in, say, an episode of The Big Bang Theory, which I don't know why it would, but let's just run with the theory, and they upload that episode of Big Bang Theory and forget to remove the song, it's going to match because the song definitely was in there, and the company swore that everything in that video was theirs and they had the rights to order takedown. So that's what's going on. Bad sourcing is what's causing it, and there's got to be more pressure on people providing the content to remove and filter what is not theirs and what they don't own. And it's tricky, it's difficult, but they're going to have to get on that. They can't just simply shotgun everything that they've created into YouTube's Content ID system and say, match this. It doesn't work. But the second problem is the rather messed up sort of the appeal system to it. I mean, my friend, like I said, going back to him, he filed what I thought was a very well stated appeal. YouTube didn't even respond, other than with these stupid stock letters, didn't even really look at it. So there was no good way to match up. Another friend of mine, Patrick O'Keefe, is dealing with something similar with a series he does. For 60, he used footage from an Ubisoft game. He's doing video game reviews of it. Used some footage from an Ubisoft game. Ubisoft basically had the video not taken down, but had it Content ID matched. He protested that, saying, "Hey, look, it's a review. We took hours of literally an hour of footage and narrowed it way down. We're talking over it. It's commentary, giving our thoughts. It's not just pure gameplay. We believe this to be a fair use," and Ubisoft responded saying, "Screw you." So the appeal process is very lopsided in favor of the Content ID system. And that's kind of where I want to end this. The Content ID itself is not a bad idea. It's actually a very good one in many ways. It keeps infringing material off the site. That in turn helps original content, the point of YouTube, grow and flourish. And if it's done well, it can encourage open licensing, encourage people to sort of start using works like my filmmaker friend that others want to be used in YouTube, and that can turn YouTube into a great promotion engine for new artists. And also it can help feed more established artists through their official channels and encourage the rise of those as well. So it can be very good, but there are problems with the way it's implemented, both in terms of sourcing errors and in terms of the appeal process. Because let's face it, if Content ID doesn't have a solid and respected appeals process, it's not going to work. It's going to be a horrible deal for the content, for the people who are uploading content to YouTube. So, just my 2 cents. I'm way over today, but it's a long, complicated, and convoluted issue, and I know there's still a lot that I skipped over. On that note, everyone, thank you very much for joining me. Until tomorrow, this is Jonathan Bailey, signing off.